Before we start, I'd just like to introduce a couple of other people who are joining me today and who will be talking as well. Throughout the development of the local nature recovery strategies, we're being helped by a lot of people, but the NFU and the CLA are really been supporting us in the engagement with landowners and farmers. So if I could just ask Charles and Claire to introduce themselves. I can see Charles, so do you want to go ahead?
Thank you very much, Alexia. Well, hello everyone, great to see you here, really important topic. So I'm here representing CLA as the Kent County Chair.
Thanks, Charles. And Claire.
Hi there, I'm Claire Eckley, Chair of Kent NFU, just for a few more weeks, and I'm also a board member with Charles on the LNRS for Kent, which is called Making Space for Nature.
Thanks very much, Claire. And we've also got a colleague from Natural England, who is our advisor, Karen. And you think you're online? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see how many people are here. Really, really pleasing. I'm the Local Nature Recovery Strategy Senior Officer for Natural England for Kent, and I also lead on quite a few nature recovery projects in Kent. So Natural England has the lead role alongside support from that Environment Agency and the Forestry Commission, and I think Will is on the call today. He's your key contact from the Forestry Commission for the LNRS. And we have a role to ensure that the regs and guidance are followed and to support the RAs in how they approach that, and then ensure that there's 48 of them and that they've got to match up so that there's no boundaries, and we have those nature recovery networks as an outcome at the end. And of course, probably for this audience in particular, we're feeding in very much backwards to DEFRA and forwards in what it's like on the front line, financially, the difficulties, the questions, and so forth. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And I've also got a colleague, Rachel, who's on the call. And she's, Rachel, if you're there, do you want to say hello? Probably busy trying to field people coming in.
Hello, sorry, yeah, it was. Hello, yes, I'm Rachel, I'm the support officer on the project, so I'm involved in the comms and engagement with stakeholders across the project, so social media posts, all that malarkey will be coming from me.
And so yeah, so she's your person if you want any help with comms at all, any of the events, anything that's happening. So super, so thank you again for joining us, and I'm just going to go through a bit of a slide presentation to explain a bit more about what we're doing. Hope you can see that all. Can you see that? Yep. Just need to move this a little bit. There's that. So just to make sure everybody can see that. Okay, good. Yep. All right. So I can't see you. So if anything goes wrong or you don't understand something, shout at me. It's no problem. So making space for nature in Kent and Medway, as Claire has said, that's the name that we've given to the project for creating the local nature recovery strategy in Kent and Medway. And so today I'm going to explain a little bit more about what an LNRS is, obviously why you're so essential to its development, what's in it for you, what it means for you, and how you should get involved. We're going to spend about 30 minutes and then there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. If you've got questions, put them in the chat, but I think sometimes it's would be great also to have a chat at the end. So either way, be very glad to answer any questions you may have. And just, yeah, put your hand up when we get into that and we'll come to you.
Damn it!
Rescue them.
Hello, hello. There's somebody who needs to go on mute. Hello, hello. Lizzie, there we go. You're all set. So there we go. I'll just get going. So local nature recovery strategies, what are they? They're a legal requirement under the Environment Act, And as Karen said, every county in England is developing one, so there will be no gaps or overlaps. And the idea is that they join up and they create this nature recovery network across the whole of England. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Lawton principles of creating bigger, better and more connected habitats. So this is really a way of doing that in a joined up way across the whole country. So we're really looking to try and achieve this landscape scale networks for nature. So there is a responsible authority developing each of these LNRSs, and that is what we are at Kent County Council. But they're a whole new way of working, and the key element of them is that they should be collaborative. So whilst Kent County Council, we've created a project team. This is all about working together with you, with other, businesses, community groups, everyone who lives across Kent and Medway. It's really a collaborative effort from the ground up. And one thing to be very clear about from the beginning is that it's entirely voluntary for from the point of view of landowners. There's no compulsion to have your land in it, and there's not going to be any mandate of any actions that should be taken. But the hope is that we can create this collaborative approach, we can put together all of our priorities, and we can come up with something that collectively we can all work on individually. Why is a nature recovery strategy necessary across England and across the UK? I'm sure many of you will have seen these are statistics from the State of Nature report published last year, but there are many different and details of the sort of impact and the decline of nature here. Decrease in populations and abundance, and the threat of extinction. So we know that we really need to be doing more for nature. And Kent in particular is an extremely biodiverse county, and I'm sure if you look at all of these highlights which are taken from the Kent Biodiversity Strategy, you could pick out things that are important to you, whether it's orchids, bumblebees, nightingales, turtle doves. There are some incredibly important species that we find in Kent, and we have some very special habitats which are, they're very limited, things like chalk downlands. So there's many reasons why we really want to focus and do as much as we can to protect and recover biodiversity in Kent. So how are these strategies going to be developed? So this little diagram on the left is sort of sets out the key steps. And it's perhaps easier if you sort of start at the bottom. There's going to be two main aspects to the strategies. There's going to be this habitat map, and then there's going to be statement of priorities, so something written to explain why the priorities have been chosen, and a bit more detail obviously about what those are. So it's those two components that will together create the local nature recovery strategy. And so if we come down the left-hand side, the sort of steps in mapping, this first bit of mapping areas of particular importance for biodiversity, that's a defined map set out by DEFRA, and that includes things, protected areas, irreplaceable habitat, nature reserves, local wildlife sites. So that's a defined map, and that's being worked on at the minute. But then the second area of mapping is an area where we really would like your involvement. We want to map areas where action is already being taken to recover nature, and we're building an online tool to capture all of that, because we think this is a fantastic way of recognizing and learning from all the great work that you're all already doing to protect and restore nature. So that's being worked on at the minute, and we hope to launch that end of January, beginning of February. So then we'll come on to this other map, which are these areas that could become of importance for biodiversity, and that will be informed by partially by some of the other mapping, but then that would give us the overall picture, both of kind of the core areas that are currently of importance for biodiversity and those areas where we could which could be important. So those are kind of the key, some of the key steps. Chris, who I think is on the call actually as well, one of my colleagues, he's been working on describing the strategy area, looking at the landscape character, and we've got a lot of guidance and a lot of information on developing species long lists and how we should look at priorities. And that's something that we also want you to help us to get involved in, because obviously we're looking at this from a species perspective nationally, but there will be things that are very important locally, and we want to make sure that we capture both the nationally important and the locally important priorities. So this all relies on really getting input from everybody across Kent, and particularly from landowners and farmers. So as I've mentioned, it's going to be locally led and this very collaborative approach. We do have statutory guidance and regulations, and as Karen mentioned, we're a lot of support and feedback to DEFRA. This is a whole new way of doing things, so we are sort of learning as we go, and this will be a collaborative effort between the public and private sector, communities, everybody playing a role. So I've been asked many times when I've gone out to talk to farmer clusters or wherever, how does this all fit in? So this is our attempt to try and join all of these various acronyms and initiatives up. So as you can see right at the top, the Environmental Improvement Plan, which flows from the Environment Act, which informs the nature recovery network, and the local nature recovery strategies will really feed up to that, as well as link to all of these other elements, be it local plans, biodiversity net gain, ELMS, and green investment, and I'll come on to those in a little bit more detail. I think you're probably aware that there's also a land use framework due to be published, and obviously we need to balance as a country the use of land for food production, for nature, for energy development. There are many competing uses, so it's a very complex area. But we, the local nature recovery strategies will be the work that really defines how we address the nature aspects of that. And all of those acronyms over on the left-hand side are things like river basin plans, water plans, catchment plans, green infrastructure. So linked into all the planning kind of related things. But as we say here, it's complex and there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of these policies are not yet fully defined. So the LNRS is going to provide this overall strategy, but it will rely on other areas of policy for delivery. And these are some of the key areas through which it will be delivered. So it will inform local plan making. In developing plans, local authorities will have to take account of the LNRS. So previously it was just consider, but it is now that they must take account of it in developing their plans and in looking at planning approvals. It will be linked to biodiversity net gain, and that guidance has been published. Specifically, it will inform the strategic multiplier. So if the habitat in question is in the LNRS and is then delivering BNG, that multiplier in the calculator will apply. We believe that it will be linked to ELMS. We still wait for the further detail of exactly what that will look like. But it's obviously been a big announcement recently from DEFRA on all the streams of funding, SFI and CS, and we're just waiting for the follow-on guidance as to how this will all link up with the LNRSs. And it will also direct other grants and investment. And the hope is that, again, it sort of provides a coordinated approach to that. It is focused really on providing nature-based solutions. So whether that's to slowing the flow of water, improving water quality, all of these things that can be delivered by improving habitat. And as we've mentioned before, it's hoping that we'll create this collaborative framework across the county that will enable us to all work together to achieve the best and most joined up actions on a sort of network-wide basis. So ultimately, its objective is that action and investment is directed to those areas of greatest need and benefit from a biodiversity, habitat and species perspective, and that the losses and impacts are directed away from most valuable areas. There's a lot of text here, but I did just want to spend a minute on it to make sure that we're clear about what it will and won't do. So it is a strategy. It's going to define areas at a high level. So it's not trying to draw a very localized or detailed boundary. And it's not trying to dictate, and it will not dictate that you should do anything. We're going to identify potential measures, which means actions, what actions should be taken to restore or improve habitat. But it's not mandated at all. So it's not going to force you to make any changes, but it's the hope is that it will inform where you do want to do things, where to focus your energies and your investment. It's essential that it's developed with your input, and we're wanting to involve you right from the beginning, but there will also be a formal consultation before it is published. I think the other thing to appreciate is that it is an iterative process. We obviously are not going to be able to make a plan to recover nature in 18 months. This is a huge task. So this is a first round, and then the Secretary of State can ask for it to be refreshed between every 3 to 10 years. So we'll obviously learn a lot from this, and we do recognise that we have a very short time frame. But on the other hand, I think it means that we need to really focus, and we can really hopefully make some progress, because I think sometimes we just think, oh no, not another strategy. We really want to get on with the action that's required. So I don't need to tell you this, but just some statistics about why it's so important to involve landowners and farmers in the development of this strategy. Obviously, the vast majority of land is given over to agricultural or forestry use, and there's an enormous number of land holdings in Kent, and that's one of the reasons why my role has been created as the landowner officer. It doesn't necessarily been possible in all other responsible authorities, but we really want to make sure that you are very involved and have as much support as possible to get involved in the strategy. And why do we want you to be involved? Well, obviously, because you know your land best, and you are already doing amazing work to protect and restore habitats, and be that through countryside stewardship or through your own initiatives. And all of your knowledge and experience are going to be essential, because one of the key criteria for this strategy is that it should be feasible and deliverable. And that's only going to be possible with your help and advice. And of course, you understand very well the ecosystem services that a thriving natural environment delivers: pollinators, soil health, water quality and pest control. So you really know why this is so important. But we also hope that it will help to secure economic returns for you through links to government funding schemes and green finance, and the sweet spot between reducing inputs and increasing outputs, which hopefully can save costs. And another very important aspect, which again you will really be appreciate, is the importance of increasing climate change resilience. be that, retaining more water in the landscape, or in times of drought. We just saw yesterday the report of the increased heat in 7 months of the last year, and equally we've had flooding. So we've got so many more of these severe weather events, which we hope that this can help to manage and mitigate. Now, I think that the local nature recovery strategy in Kent and Medway is particularly important because obviously of the huge role that we play in food security, and because we're at the forefront of climate change. The amount of horticultural produce, fresh food that is produced in Kent, grown in Kent, and indeed the other food that passes through Kent, through ports. We've got a huge coastline. We're very high area of high water stress, and invasive species arrive here first. So I think that what happens in Kent and Medway really matters to the rest of the country, and I also think there's a lot that we could learning that we can share with other counties, for example, as to how to manage impacts of climate change and invasive species. So that's from me, but I'll hand over now to Claire just to have a few thoughts from the NFU perspective on why this is important.
Thanks, Alexa. That's been a really good introduction. I know there's more of the nitty-gritty coming later. So NFU is starting to engage more on LNRS. So I think some would say, is this not going to be like some of the other green schemes that our Prime Minister is trying to roll back on? And I think the fact that it's been put into the Environment Act means that it won't be. I think LNRS is coming and it will be used for all sorts of things in the future. I think Kent County Council is really good at getting value for money out of things like this. So the strategy, we've got 13, I think, planning authorities across the county. We really need to be part of this. And actually, there's so many other agencies like local authorities, parish councils, big landowners that you might not have thought of, so like churches, and then we've got the voluntary groups and the general public and wildlife organisations, and they're all being asked for their input onto this strategy, which is why we need, as farmers and landowners, to also have an input. So BNG funding, we're kind of looking at that long-term type of funding. So agriculture is going through its big transition now that we've left Europe. We're into a new incentive scheme rather than subsidy. And this is one type of funding that you could look at for your farm if you wanted to, because of course anything is voluntary, and you can look at it in much the same way as a solar farm agreement, so very long-term land management options, which some businesses might look at as exit strategy, retirement strategy, succession strategy. So it's a really interesting option coming in the future, and it's really important that farmers are aware of the map and then the potential map, and make sure if you've got something nice you want to put in there, and make sure you kind of declare it, I suppose. And then alternatively, you might want to say, well, I definitely don't want to be in the map as well. So it's all about being informed and making your contribution if you want to. So let's have a look at the next slide. Can I have the next one, please?
Sorry, for some reason it's sticking.
Oh, I could talk a bit more.
No, it's okay. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really great that so many people are on the call today, because that means there's early engagement from landowners and farmers. So we're hoping to have, so we're looking for that joined up approach. So joined up geographically and joined up in terms of the whole farming and landowning community will input into these maps. Sorry, I have to be honest, these are, obviously I'm amongst friends here. And I don't think I'd have written that farming needs to modernise. But anyway, farming definitely needs to have its eyes open about future potential income streams. And this is that. So there might be ways it can be lined up with, well, we'll have to see how it influences elms in the future. But I can, you know, countryside stewardship might well have some local input so that local nature interests are supported through countryside stewardship. And I can see LNRS being that local influence into countryside stewardship agreements, which even if you're not interested in BNG, you might be interested in countryside stewardship because it's a much shorter agreement. So so thank you everyone for logging on today. And now I think I get to hand over to Giles.
Thanks very much, Claire. Yeah, here we go.
Okay, thank you, Claire. So yeah, really start off by saying that NFU and CLA are both heavily involved in this. So we've got, there's the Makerspace for Nature, the Kent version has got a board, which Claire and I are on, so overseeing. There's also a delivery group, which NFU and CLA are both represented on. CLA have been working with other counties, as I'm sure the NFU are. Quite a few other counties in the southeast and southern region aren't anywhere near as far ahead as Kent is, but what's good is pooling best practice, and so that's what we're trying to do. I think I mean, last week the announcement about SFI 24 was a real game changer. I don't think there were many people actually saw coming what the government announced. The across the board increase in payments for any SFIs which were already set up. We knew there was extra measures coming in this year now in the SFI 24 when it gets finally published later in the year. But linking up with countryside stewardship, you know, that's really important. There was quite a big increase of payments to the uplands. Now that is very important, but there aren't any uplands in Kent. So part of this process we're going through now is to show how important it is across the whole country, but what can we deliver in Kent? And in future, you know, although we don't know the fine details, the funding, it looks very, very strongly like funding is going to be linked into some of the outcomes from this process. So we need to make a really good case to get our share of the money. So elms, you know, that should link into this process. Countryside stewardship, biodiversity, net gain. These are all things. Nutrient neutrality. That's something we haven't been doing a lot of at the moment, but these are all things that are coming. So mapping what's there now, mapping which areas are best for what process is really going to make a big difference. Yesterday we had a smaller meeting, and one of the things we were demonstrated as a new app coming forward. Now this isn't a requirement of the LNS, but this is something Kent want to do. We had a demo of the app, which is still being developed, but getting quite close. Seriously impressive what work's been done on it. The people developing it are actually also use the land app, which I know a lot of farmers are getting involved with, and there's quite a bit of synergy with that. In other words, some of the land use codes and those sort of things in the land app will match what's in the app which we are developing. So that, you know, so that makes it a lot easier. But with this app, any cluster groups can register what they're thinking about doing, what they're doing, what they've done. Not just cluster groups, individual farmers can do that as well, or groups of farmers. There may be groups of farmers out there who are working collaboratively together. They're not part of a formal cluster, but that doesn't mean they can't enter in on this app what they're doing together. And so, or what they're looking to do, or what they've already done. And this is really important to actually say, well, look, this is what the industry's done in the past. So looking at this first slide, the most important bit for me is right down the bottom where it says that no one knows the land like a farmer who's been working it for generations. And then if we go on to the second slide, that really justifies the important thing is that farmers and landowners need to be involved at this stage, right at the beginning, to make sure that whatever actions come out of this are deliverable. You know, we're going to have to make them work on the farms. So getting involved right now means that there's a good chance that the outcomes are going to work for us, and we've had an input. So really positive about this scheme. We're really behind it, and yeah, and it's great that KCC, and we all know that KCC are having budgetary problems at the moment, but KCC are putting a lot of resources into this, so, and that's a positive for farming. So we need to engage with it and help it be a success. So Alexa, back to you.
Super. Thank you very much, Charles. So as Charles mentioned, you know, we've been trying to get as many out to speak to as many landowners or farmers as we can, and Claire and Charles have really been helping us do that. So just to give you a bit of an idea, looking at all of these various ways of getting involved, so far we've tried to get involved so far. So as Charles mentioned, he and Claire are on the board, and other members are on the delivery group. If we go around to the right, I think probably many of you will have signed up to be on our newsletter and be getting messages about events that way, so that's great. Farmer clusters have been very kind, have invited me along to meetings to talk with them about how they could get involved with the local nature recovery strategy. Similarly, catchment partnerships, joined the Fresh Food and Horticultural Task Force, which was another great opportunity just to, you know, get the word out there. Obviously, we've got all of our government advisors, our catchment sensitive farming team, who are obviously out and about all the time, all the NGOs who are working with landowners, RSPB, KWT, people like that. And so we're really trying to go through networks as much as we can. And we will also be at various events, so conferences, agricultural shows and ploughing matches, again, just trying to reach as many people as we can. So if you are a group of farmers, you have an event, you have get together in a pub to talk about things and you would like to know more about it, you know, just get in touch, and I'm very happy to come along. At the top here, you'll see the Land Advice Network. So this is another aspect of what we've done to try to involve landowners. So we have really asked anybody who provides advice across Kent and Medway if they would like to join. And I think there's quite a few advisors on this call today. So if you aren't already involved, then please drop me a line if you would like to be. And the idea is that anybody who provides advice will know about the LNRS. So if you are, you know, talking to your agronomist, or you've got, you know, you're going off to see your lawyer, or I'm sure land agents will already be, you know, well aware of the LNRS, but really that anybody who you could be talking to as a landowner or a farmer or a grower should know what it is and have an idea of the implications of it for you, so that, you know, you can discuss it with them and think about what does this mean for your land management plans, what does it mean for your longer term strategy, and how might you like to get involved, how might you like to align what you're doing with the strategy. So there's about, I think about 100 people who are members of that Land Advice Network, and I have a monthly briefing so that they know what's happening in the project, and they can in turn keep everybody that they work with up to date. So I thought you might just like to see this quick map. It doesn't include, I'm sure, by any stretch of the imagination, every farmer cluster, but there are, you know, quite a few active clusters, and there's also quite a few that are being developed. And I think this is a fantastic way, obviously, in which farmers can work together. I was previously a farmer cluster facilitator, so I should declare an interest. I worked on with the Marden cluster, but, you know, I've seen all the fantastic work that has gone on there, and the huge impact that's had on creating habitat there, supporting a species like turtle doves and yellowhammers. So, you know, I know that we can have policies, but really it's the action on the ground that makes a difference, and that comes down to you and all that you're doing on the ground. So if you are interested in joining a cluster, get in touch with them, or get in touch with me if you want an introduction, or if you want to get together with a group of farmers, that would be great. And it can be as informal as you like. And I'm sure many of you will have seen the fantastic work that's being done over in East Kent for many years with Dan Tucson and all of those farmers that he works with there. So, there are huge landscape scale projects which are restoring habitat already. So, we've got a fantastic starting point in Kent. So just a quick look at the project programme. This is a lot of detail, but essentially just shows you how we're currently working on the first mapping of areas of importance. Then, as Charles mentioned, we're going to start capturing the areas where nature recovery action is already taking place. And developing these kind of short and long lists for priority species. And then we go on with a view to sort of getting a draft together by the end of the year, formal consultation at the beginning of next year, and publishing in May. So to summarise, why do we want you to get involved? You are the future delivery partners for this strategy. So you are absolutely key, and your knowledge and experience will help us to make this deliverable. And as we've said earlier, unless we can deliver this, that really we're not going to have the impact that we want to. We hope that this will influence and inform funding and investment, and we want to ensure that your interests are represented in those discussions, and that you are able to know what it means and then can build it into your long-term planning. You understand what the opportunities are, and you're able to plan accordingly. So there's lots of ways to get involved. And I realise that, maybe it's a little bit quieter now, although I think probably everyone's getting going, but that you will quickly get busy during the year. So we are providing online surveys as a means of giving us your feedback and thoughts. So there will be a survey launched very soon about what are your priorities in terms of nature recovery. But then there will be surveys throughout the project. We'll also be holding workshops. So I'll come on in a bit more detail to what those workshops are going to focus on. But again, there'll be 3 sets of workshops. So a chance to come along in person and share your thoughts and get involved in shaping the strategy. We've mentioned this online tool, which is being developed to capture the actions already being taken, and that will be launched in February. I have seen it, as Charles mentioned, it looks very intuitive, but we'll also be providing training and support to help you with that. Drop us a line anytime. There's our email address. And also obviously discuss with your network, your local farmer cluster, your neighbours, your land advisors, and encourage them to get involved as well, because it's fantastic to have you here, and we want as many people as possible to get involved. And so this is just a bit of a more detail, and I will be sharing these slides, and I will be putting the talk up online so you can have another look. But this is where you can get involved, and depending on what your interests are, because I realise we're having workshops and they're quite long. We're scheduling them for about 6 hours, and you've probably got a lot to do in a day. You can't necessarily give us all that time. So this sets out what's going to happen at the different workshops, and where you could, so you can get an idea of what's of interest to you, and then come along to the relevant session so that you can, have a chance to influence that. So workshops, the first set of workshops, which is one at the end of January and then during February, are looking at the sort of 2 aspects: the pressures and threats and challenges facing Kent. So why is it that we need to, protect and increase the areas of habitat or species? So we'll be looking at that in the morning, and in the afternoon we'll be looking at, what are your priorities? What would you like to see for nature? What we're calling a wish list for nature recovery. So if you can only spare half a day, then possibly the afternoon is the one where you'd really be able to, we really want to know what are your, what would you really like to see? What are your priorities and your wish list? Then later on in spring, we'll be having some workshops where we will be looking at coming down to the shortlist and wondering about then what are the potential measures, the actions that could be taken. So again, that would be really good to have your feedback, because you'll know what it takes to, to make things happen, to create more habitat or whatever. But again, there'll be a survey as well as the workshops. And then ultimately we'll be coming out with this map, which shows what areas could become of importance for biodiversity, which again, I think will be of great interest to you. So that's another one where you might want to come along and see what that looks like. All of these, come for whatever time you can. We'll give you a chance to see some of the maps. We'll share whatever we've already got in terms of maps. We'll also be providing help with capturing data onto the online tool or the app. Even just to come in and see us, and we have a chat so that we can tell you a little bit more about what's going on and hear from you. That would be great. That's really what we want. I don't know why this keeps sticking, but it does. Hold on a minute while I get it to move on. Okie dokie. So we have got workshops across the county, and these are the addresses. And as I've said, you're welcome to come in the morning or the afternoon. And you can go to any location. So if the date doesn't suit you, just pick one. And the idea is that this is obviously we're going to have to amalgamate all of the outcomes of these across the county. But we do understand that there will be specific local interests as well. So, just come along when you can. So ultimately, what are we hoping that Making Space for Nature will achieve? That it will create a spatially framed strategy for nature, and that will focus action where it is most needed and where it's going to deliver the greatest benefits. And therefore that will help to direct action and investment to areas of greatest need and benefit. We also want to direct losses away from our most valuable natural assets. And to get with all of this, we hope to create a coherent and resilient ecological network of wildlife-rich places, so that we have a thriving wildlife and plants across Kent.